That leads me to Mr. Hostetler. I know you have some new business that you would like to share with the court.
I do. As a brief introduction, I have a friend that's asked to come and speak to the court. I'll let him make that presentation, but I wanted to share first how we met. I'm trying to condense this.
What's it? All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hey, good evening. Good evening. We're at whatever time we're in. I'll call this meeting of the Woodford County Fiscal Court to order. The Committee of the Whole. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Squire Taylor.
Here.
Squire Gentry.
Here.
Squire Barner. Here. Squire Carl. Here. Squire Downey. Squire Blackford.
Present.
Squire Gill.
Here.
Squire Brown.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The first item on our agenda is the net recovery presentation. And I believe I'll be recognizing Freeman Bailey, who is the chair of the Woodford County ASAP. The Opiate Task Force Chair, Kelly Carl. And the floor is yours.
Hi.
All right, we got plenty of good echo. That'll
We
make it
do.
sound better for you.
I know that in your packet, everyone saw that we put in there about the net recovery device there. And this is, we're here on behalf of ASAP, of course, to introduce this for people that are going through recovery. And it's a device that you attach back here. And they go through a series of, what do you call it, therapy, I guess.
Yeah, it goes through, it's a shock that it sends to the brain to help retrain the brain where they do not have the craving for the drug. And the device is being used across the board. It has finally got FDA approval. And it's the good thing about the device is we've got local people in the next county over that we've been able to talk to them, to their magistrates, to the detention center, to their jailer, where this device was used in their facility, and it had great success.
And there's like 10 counties now that are using this. And Scott County is the one who first approached me at one of our conferences and said, hey, will you take this back to your court? And this has been a year plus ago. And they are using this in their jail with great success. We've all spoken to the jailer, and we've also spoken to Michelle, our jailer, and referenced this too. And she is on board with this program. Again, captive audience there. There is a small window with when you can utilize this device. They have to, be in, like, coming off of their kind of going through detox.
Yeah, and there's a process that they go through to figure out who's eligible for the project, for this testing. What we want to do right now is play you a video of an individual that's actually used the device. His story is very compelling. It will explain he has been hooked on narcotics since he was 11 years old. And you'll see this, he's not a young man. And he's been through this, and this device has worked for him. And then we'll answer a couple questions. We just got about a 7-8 minute video for you. So if you will
Please proceed.
go ahead.
Kudos to you, brother, for having the courage to move, and I'd love to hear your story.
Teddy, will you spell your last name for me?
Okay, my full name is Theodore Jennings Edenstrom II. Please don't Google that. You might see some, you might see some pictures that you don't like. But anyway, so he was exactly right. So whenever I called, I had already been off illicit substances for about 3.5 years, but through the medical, through Georgetown Medical. But whenever I had talked to them, my kids had got dropped off to me at the Winter Circle. I was living at the Winter Circle, and I had there was no way I was going to maintain a job and have a 2- and a 4-year-old with no child care assistance or anything like that. So I reached out to the only place that I had gained any substantial amount of recovery since I was 12 years old. So my 12th trip to the rehab at Georgetown Recovery Works, I decided to go through the methadone clinic because for some reason I couldn't get away from the needle, and I had 15 years in heroin use or more. But and I had died 17 times already. It was confirmed. in 2021, I think it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. But anyway, I started when I was 12 years old from bad childhood with marijuana. I found out that I could be happy in them sad moments sitting at the Coleman house, man, on Fiscal Road in Lexington when all my friends was out with their family. But it progressed from there. And then I won't go into all that, but it's hard to maintain a job when you're dope sick, and so the only way you're going to get money to go and get a fix is to either commit a crime or sell it yourself. So, which is a crime in itself. So, I did a lot of time behind my drug use and all that, and it wasn't fun. It became a full-time job. When I met Rick and his wife, it was because Georgetown Medical, my case manager, she had saw that I was walking back and forth to View Tech every day from 3:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon and maintaining a job. But she knew how close it was for me to, like, I was almost at my wit's end, because how am I going to take care of a 2 and a 4-year-old and then still be able to get back and forth to this job? And I just found myself, man, strung out on 120 milligrams a day of methadone on legal dope, you know. But I was thankful for that place, because that place gave me the foundation I needed to be able to get away from the illicit. But then I couldn't get away from the 120 milligrams of methadone. It would have took me a whole year to dose out. And I was tired of it. One day I was sitting in the winter circle, and I contracted Hep C through all this too, knowingly. I knew the woman had Hep C. It was the only rig around, or needle, so I used it. Knowing that's how sick it was. But anyway, so I contracted that, man. But through the treatment, I'm like on my 6th week of the treatment. It would make me throw up. So I would throw up my dose on the weekends when I had my kids. And then all my kids wanted to do was just love on me. But I was going through acute withdrawal, so I would push them off. And I'd be like, no, go play. One day, man, I was sitting there, I was like, man, that's not being a dad. You know, how come I can't get out of this winter circle? I couldn't get nobody to rent to me. They rent to me on the phone. But whenever they saw me, but whatever. I understand all that. But so I couldn't figure it out. And then I remembered that. And I ain't trying to get religious or nothing, but in the Bible it says be of sober mind or whatever. And being on 120 milligrams of methadone, man, ain't no sober mind. So when he told me about the device, I had already exhausted every avenue. I've done Suboxone, turn around because they would give them to me. I'd turn around and sell them for dope, and then I couldn't stay off the dope long enough to do a Suboxone. So that never worked. But the maintenance through the methadone clinic did work, but anyway, I was just tired. I was tired of being on anything, being dependent on anything. So whenever he told me about the net device, I went, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. There's not like an amount of words that I could ever say to express my gratitude to you all for allowing me that opportunity. I wish like a whole lot more people would do it. But today I can actually be a dad, and it's actually fun. You know, I don't have to worry about being on another substance. I can help other people that are probably only going to listen to my story because of what I've been through. And it's all really because of that talk we had at Wendy's, and this device, like. And really, to be honest with you, I really thought it was snake oil. Really, I thought it was. There ain't no way. There ain't no way some device is going to help me when I had done everything else. And I thought I was just doomed. I was going to stay in the methadone clinic forever, you know. But I went, and I got off 100. Anybody that knows about methadone, I had been taking it religiously for 3.5, almost 4 years, every day. I had been taking 120 milligrams probably for about 9 months, every day. And I went there, I had 3 unopened doses, and I went there kind of sick a little bit because that's what they suggested. And when I got through, I went from 120 milligrams of methadone And I didn't take it no more when I got there, so there wasn't a taper. But I got off of 120 milligrams of methadone in 5 days with no diarrhea, no nausea, no bone aches. I mean, I sweated a lot, but that was about it. Within 20 minutes of that device, man, I was rocking in the chair. On day 5, I was shooting basketball. And like, now it's been almost a month that I've done it, and it took me, when I withdrawed off fentanyl, it took me 60 days before I even had a solid bowel movement, and about 38 days before I got up off Boone County floor. So methadone's way worse than that. So I shouldn't even be up here talking to you all. That's how remarkable this device is. I've talked to more people about it, and I wish more people would do it. But and they will. It's just I'm so thankful, and I wouldn't have this opportunity if it wasn't for you all. And you all didn't even know me. My own family ain't even done nothing like this for me. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to come here and just tell you all thanks from the bottom of my heart, man, because it changed my life. And I got a 2- and a 4-year-old that.
You notice that he's rubbing his face and stuff like. He's physically 1 month out from being a severe drug user, but he's not on drugs at all. He's got a good job now. He works for Link Belt in Lexington. He's got his kids back. He's doing extremely well. He's, so that's the stuff that it's doing. Can we tell you that that's going to work on every person? No, we don't know. Our thing is for everything out there, it's not a one cure for everything. We got to have multiple tools in the toolbox to try to fight the opioid crisis. For us, this is another chance that it could work. So if we're recommending that we try to do a pilot program with 4 people, where the city of Versailles has already voted to go 50% with us on the project to see how it works. If we try 4 people and it works, then we keep moving forward with it. If we try 4 people and it doesn't have any effect whatsoever, then we can move to something different. But it's worth trying. Because again, there's no real answers out there for everybody. There's not one tool in the box that's going to fix everybody that's on an opioid. The biggest thing that he told you all is, like Kelly told you early, they want them to be coming off of a drug. They want them looking for that drug, for that fix, the Suboxone or the drug. And that's when he went in, like he told you, 20 minutes of having that on, he was sitting in a rocking chair, not laying on the floor. 5 days later, he was playing basketball. There's several people out there with this same story. Now, they do have data out there that shows that some people it worked for, some it didn't. But that's with every trial and every treatment process out there. There's no one thing that cures everything.
And with some of this, it's 85% that it works for. Of course, it's an alternative to norm. But with this pilot program, it's $5,500 per person. So you're talking about $22,500 to do 4 people as a pilot program. And again, with the settlement money that we have, this is at least a good start, for this. Go ahead.
Well, Squire Carl, Director Bailey, thank you all. Let me ask if members of the court have any questions or comments on that. Specific net recovery specifically. And let me also add that we had them at our opiate summit. We've had additional presentations and information sent to the fiscal court on this. So let me open up the floor for any questions or comments from the fiscal court. Squire Gill?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So we can use the opioid settlement money, correct,
Yes,
for this?
It is a treatment.
Okay.
And settlement opioid money can be used for treatment and for education.
Okay.
So this is a treatment process.
And one more question. It says here that they have to be admitted to the Isaiah House, and you talked about using them in the jail?
The Isaiah House has already been approved to do the program, but it all depends on where they're at. If they're in the detention center, they can be done there.
Okay.
They come in and they run the trial. They run, not the trial, but the treatment process. They will actually come in, their doctors, they'll do the process, they'll do the questionnaires with them, things like that, and then once they've been approved, they'll start the treatment process with them, whether they're in the detention center or if they're in the Isaiah House.
And we'll know day to day how each individual is doing. It'll be our own data, which is nice to have since there is limited data out there on the device. At least with this, we'll have our 4 that we can watch and see if it's something that we want to continue.
'Cause that's one of the things that people were looking for. It's one of the first things I asked for. Show me how many people it has been through it and how many did it work for and how many is this. And they couldn't publish data until they got FDA approved. Once they got FDA approved, then they can do the trials and the studies to start producing that. And they've got an article that should be out, if it's not out at the end of this month, it'll be out first next month. That's in a health magazine article that will produce their data, that shows what it's done and how it's worked for how many of the studies they've done, things like that. And that works, but for us, our thing was, let's do our own trial study here, our own pilot program. We'll know, because these are our residents. We will see how they're doing with it, and we'll know ourselves if it's something to continue to go with, or if it's something that we say, okay, we tried, let's do, what else can we do? What's the next step?
And Scott County was on the news 2 weeks ago. They did a big part on them about how successful they had been, and the jailer is very supportive of this. So again, Scott County was kind of the first county that put it out there, and there's now 10 other counties that are also using this
To
device.
save time, we started that where Teddy started talking. He was actually in Scott County Fiscal Court talking, because the person that got him hooked on the net recovery device was one of the magistrates. His wife worked at the hospital where he had been going for recovery, and she was helping him try to find childcare. And her husband said, let's meet at Wendy's and talk about something. I got something that might help you. He suggested that he try it. And Teddy was the first person to use the net device in Scott County, and it's worked. And Larry has spoke to him personally.
Well, I've taken care of more people than I can count on methadone and Suboxone, and those 2 drugs carry a whole slew of problems beyond what Teddy talked about.
Yes.
They cause all kinds of problems, so anything you can do to get people off those drugs
Yeah,
is
don't trade a
worth
drug
it.
for another drug.
Yeah, it's worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Squire Gill. Additional comments? Squire Carl, your recommendation would be for the full fiscal court to approve the pilot program for net recovery in partnership with the city of Versailles as a half-paying partner upon the approval of the contract for net recovery with the advice of council.
Yes, absolutely.
So you'll make that motion, and we have a second?
Motion?
Second.
Second by Squire Gill. Open up for any additional questions. Mr. County Attorney, sir.
I do want to make one point of clarification, and I think Freeman and Kelly will confirm. The article in the paper seemed to indicate that Midway would have a role. Midway does not have their own separate opioid recovery. They're under your county umbrella. So it will be just Versailles City and Woodford County equally funding the project. I did want to clarify that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. Squire Varner.
Thank you, Judge. I attended ASAP meeting when that was covered, and that device looks like it's in the front of the line for treatment right now.
I agree with you.
So,
And
thank
Jeff, who is over net recovery, will also be here in April. So that will be nice. He will be here in court, and then again, if we have any other questions or concerns at that time, he'll answer those for us.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion on the recommendation of the full fiscal court is before this body. All those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Squire Carl. Thank you, Director Bailey. We appreciate it. Appreciate all the work. So welcome to all of our guests. We just took care of our first item of business for our special committee of the whole meeting. And our next item of business will be the public comment. If you have not had the opportunity and you wish to speak, please sign up. The sign-in sheet is just outside the door there. You can also sign up at any point in time.
Judge, there may be people out in the hall. That may be the sheriff. Yeah, should let them know. Can they hear this out there or their mic through this TV?
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Before we get this public comment started, I want to explain what's going on so that everybody has a full understanding of what we're doing here. Right now, it looks like we have around 20 folks to speak, and we have about an hour's worth of time. So that would be roughly about 3 minutes apiece. But I want to share that the public comment portion of this special meeting of the Fiscal Court, for the purpose of hearing public input for the proposed zoning text amendment to Articles 2 and Article 7 of the Woodford County Zoning Ordinance, was published in the paper. This public comment period was scheduled for our last Fiscal Court meeting, but because of the weather in particular, we didn't want to encourage people to get out. We didn't want people to be prohibited from coming. So as a cautionary move, we moved that meeting to today at 4:30. In late January, we asked what time would be a good time for a public hearing. The Planning and Zoning Commission held their public hearing in December of 2024, and that was at 5 o'clock. And so we decided to have ours from 4:30 until 5:30, the start of our regular meeting. At the regular Fiscal Court meeting, we also have a public comment section if there are additional comments that need to be allowed. We understand that not everybody can make the 4:30 meeting today, but the most important thing that you all need to know is that your magistrates are on call and available to discuss with you these issues anytime, pretty much anytime. And they are the ones who ultimately represent each of you and will make the final decision should there be a vote on this proposed zoning text amendment. There will not be a vote this evening. We are still collecting public input. Some of you are here, I'm sure, and you are here because you believe that you didn't know about this or you didn't have time to digest this. There is still more time. The purpose is to educate, inform, and seek input from the public, not to have a public hearing for the purposes of meeting some requirement. In fact, the Woodford County Fiscal Court is not required to have a public comment period. We intentionally decided to have a public comment period because this is a very, very important topic, as evidenced by the folks in this room. This discussion of the items in the proposed zoning text amendment began on September 14th, 2023, where the Planning Commission discussed rural parcel trends. The Agriculture Advisory Review Committee met and discussed this very issue on October 11th, 2023. The Planning Commission met on October 12th, 2023 to continue the discussion of rural parcel trends. They adopted a resolution to request the Fiscal Court issue a moratorium to allow the Planning Commission to review the comprehensive plan to address rural land division. The Agriculture Advisory Review Committee met on October 24th, and they discussed the moratorium request. And the Fiscal Court, while we entertained that moratorium request, we ultimately did not take that item up, but that was discussed in a public meeting of the Fiscal Court. The Planning Commission's Advisory Committee met on December 14th, 2023 to discuss this proposed text amendment. The Planning Commission Advisory Committee met again on December 28th, 2023, discussing the amendment. They met on September 12th, 2024 to discuss this proposed text amendment. They met on October 10th, 2024 to discuss this proposed amendment, and all of these meetings were public meetings. The Planning Commission advertised and noticed in the Woodford Sun on December 12th, a public hearing regarding this text amendment. The public hearing was held on December 19th, 2024 at 5 p.m. and lasted approximately 2 hours, where folks had the opportunity to express their opinions and discuss with the Planning Commission the proposed text amendment. The Fiscal Court then received the proposed text amendment. We've held 2 committee meetings. The proposed text amendment is in the Ordinance Committee. It must be voted out favorably from the Ordinance Committee to the Fiscal Court before it is appropriate for action. Those 2 meetings of the Ordinance Committee were live streamed, as was the public hearing and meeting of December 19th of the Planning Commission. I lay out all that procedural history to tell you that we are not trying to do this behind closed doors or without public input. It's the exact opposite. So we welcome you here. I just want to set forth a few ground rules so that everybody knows. We have a baby in the room, and that little baby is welcome, and we want that baby to not hear its first bad words tonight, all right? We want to give everybody the opportunity to speak. So we're going to start out with 3 minutes. If there's additional time at the end, we will absolutely let people continue to speak. If you feel compelled to speak, you haven't made your points, you need additional time, let me as the chair know. But please address me as the chair. Don't address the Fiscal Court. Don't address audience members. Please try to refrain from responding or making any comments. Wait for your opportunity to speak. I do have the gavel. It's not my gavel, it's the people of Woodford County's gavel, and they have issued it to me to keep order. And if I have to, I'll keep order, but I feel like we're going to be fine this evening. I know a lot of you in this room, and you're good people, and we welcome and appreciate your opinion. So without further ado, we'll begin the public comment period. If you could, as I call your name, approach the podium. If the mic is not on, please turn on the mic. This meeting is live streamed on Facebook and YouTube for our citizens to also see and participate. And please state your name for the record for when you begin to speak. And I don't know if there's anybody here that's not a Woodford County resident, but Woodford County residents are the only ones permitted to speak in your court this evening. So the first person I'd like to call up, who signed up first, Mr. David Humes. Hume. Excuse me.
My name's David Humes. I'm a resident of Woodford County since 1980. Originally Midway, then Versailles. So was on planning and zoning. So back in 1990 to 1993, which is when rural residential first came up. So I'm unfortunately here for this round two because that was a long process as well. I apologize that I'm late to all these different meetings that have been been predecessed this, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to give input on those meetings. I've done a lot in Woodford County with rural residential, and so I'm familiar with several of the projects that have been done in Woodford County, and I think they've been done well. Hidden Way, you can't even see that subdivision, and Polo Run is also almost out of sight. The idea was to preserve the view shed, and that's why we got rid. And I think piano key lots were originally what got this all motivated, because we were ending up with subdivisions in our view shed because the lots were 150 feet wide by 1,000 feet deep, and the setback was 80 feet, so everybody's building their houses right up on the road. So the cluster development was designed to try to put it farther back on the farm, but still allow farmers to develop some of their land so that they could keep farming. I think that as far as preserving farmland, I think the zoning, and I may be wrong here, but the zoning north of US 60 is basically, there is no subdividing less than 30 acres. So we've kind of preserved everything north of US 60. Everything south of US 60, I think if we want to preserve farmland, maybe we need to look at soil types, and maybe instead of it being a broad stroke where everything below US 60 that's outside of the urban service area is agricultural, maybe we need to be looking at some other zones, or maybe split up the agricultural zone and save the best soils for farming, and then maybe the soils that aren't so good, maybe that's where we need to do divisions and allow people to live in the countryside. The way the farms are set up now, I don't know all the main crops in Woodford County, but I'm assuming that they're soybeans, hay, corn, which if you had to buy the land now, you probably couldn't afford to grow those crops and pay your bills. Bourbon and equine seem to be the people that can afford the land, and that's what's taking over. Am I used up my 3 minutes already? Okay, I'll sit down. I've already turned in comments, so you can.
And so Mr. Hume has turned in public comments. We will note that for the record, and we'll have the opportunity to share that with the court and the public. Mr. Hume, you mind if those are shared with the public as well? Mind if your written comments are shared with the public? You're good with that? Yes, sir. Next up, we have Mr. Hoppy Hinton.
I just got out of the hospital, I think, only a year ago, so I'm feeling a little better. I was on one of the task force that put this together, and one of the things that we did in terms of the 30 acres and the cluster development and all was about the view shed that we talked about and what goes on. As a farm owner and a farm operator in Woodford County, I'm very much involved in this situation. As we put this ordinance together, one of the things that showed up, maybe late, but showed up, was the in-family conveyance issue. And we knew on the committee that it was likely to be a problem, but we were trying to deal with an issue of farmers trying to invite their children to come back and be involved in the farm and live on the farm. As you probably have seen in the situation, it has been abused terribly. I think the approach that you've gone through so far is a good start. It may not be perfect, but I would encourage this committee to vote for this, move on in this situation, and try to deal with the issue of what goes on in Woodford County. And so my comments are brief. Do it, and do it now, and we'll go forward. But I think it's important. I know one of the squires has asked me about who was on this committee when it started, and maybe the county attorney and I may remember some of this. It seemed like a million years ago. But please vote for this thing. I think it's a really good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hinton. Mr. Tim Parrott?
Hello, I'm Tim Parrott. I'm a third-generation Woodford County, and I'm opposed to these changes. The changes to the rural residential development would do basically three things. It would limit this option to 100-acre increments. That takes out a lot of opportunities. It doubles the lot size to 2 acres, and it increases the maximum height of the houses to 42 feet, which is a 3-story house. A 3-story house on a 2-acre lot is going to start at what, $1.5 million? 98% of Woodford County households have income under $200,000, less than half that. Woodford County's top 2% don't even earn half of what it takes to buy these things. From 2020 to 2025, only 31 houses worth over $1 million each were built in Woodford County, cities included. There is no demand for multi-million-dollar houses in rural Woodford County. There is, however, a current need for at least 1,200 affordable houses in Woodford County. So I'm just asking you this one question. If you have children or family members who are Woodford Countyans, legacy Woodford Countyans, where are they going to live? We don't have any housing for them. Building multi-million-dollar houses is not a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Parrott. Lori Garkovich?
So my name's Lori Garkovich. Okay. The parcelization of quality agricultural land, and that is what we do have here in Woodford County, does 4 things. It damages the future economic contributions of our agricultural industries. 2, it affects our ability to contribute to the independence of our nation's food system. 3rd, it threatens the environmental sustainability of land and water resources, because as you have more parcels, if we don't build septic systems, or if we don't build sewer systems throughout the county, you're going to have issues. And 4th, it directly diminishes our ability to achieve a key goal of the 2024 Comp Plan, which was committed to sustaining our ag land and water resources and the economic value of our economic cluster that depends on agriculture. And that is an interconnected set of businesses who depend partially or totally on the health of our core agricultural businesses, our farms, in order to survive. And I can share with you at some point in time if you want, but a few years ago I put together a list of all of those businesses, and it ran 18 pages, single-spaced, typed, okay, 12-point. And they range from things such as fencing companies, painting companies, builders, land restoration companies, dry cleaners. Yes, they do have an effect, because where do you get all those horse blankets clean? Land restoration companies, caterers who serve those businesses, real estate agents, feed stores, large and small equipment sales and repairs, fuel providers, hardware stores, and that didn't even cover the whole list. It's an impressive list. In conclusion, okay, we have a precious resource that is scarce. And the suitability of other land in other places is getting diminished by changing climate. When the land is converted from ag production to urban or non-ag uses into smaller and smaller parcels or units by residential development, the ag economic cluster falters and ultimately fails. Once converted, that land resource value declines and disappears. So yes, I am on the ARC and helped do this, and it's been part of our concern about what's happening in this community that led to us writing that letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Weber.
I'm Susan Weber, and my husband and I, Ray Weber, own a farm on Scotts Ferry East. And I'm upset about houses on farms, whether it's 10 or 20 or whatever. It's too many. We say that we're the horse capital and bourbon capital. We have to preserve our farmland for the horses and for the cattle. And I can tell you that 10 or 20 houses on any farm does not mix well with livestock. When I moved here about 31 years ago, one Saturday there was a helicopter flying over. It turns out that a horse farm south of us on McCown's Ferry, some dogs had chased their horses through the board fence. One horse had to be put down and the helicopter was looking for the other one. I don't know the outcome of that. But also in these cluster 1 or 2 acre places for these houses on farms come children. They want dogs, they want dirt bikes, they want four-wheelers, and they want to use the farmer's land to do that. That doesn't work well with animals. Also, if we're going to be the bourbon capital of the world, it sure helps our farmers that they can raise the corn and rye to sell to the distilleries. It's a win-win all the way around. And I just beg you to save our farmland. Thank you.
Thank you. B. Stringer.
Hello, I appreciate you having a public hearing on this issue. I think it's vitally important, and I want to let you know that I strongly support these ordinance changes. In the 40-plus years that I've lived in Troy, I've seen acres and acres of farmland be paved over for residential lots, usually on some of the best farmland on the farm. Number two, I noticed the Planning Commission staff's very well-researched documentation of the abuses of the in-family conveyance. It was a great idea to help family members stay on the farm. Unfortunately, most of the in-family conveyance lots were sold at 5 years or earlier. And number three, the best reason to adopt these ordinance changes is beautifully stated in the revised agriculture purpose and intent, new 701.1. I hope you all take time to read those points, think about them, pray about them, and I hope you then decide to adopt the changes as recommended. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry Drury. And I'll just note that I'm getting to some signatures that I may not be able to tell who it is. So if you remember signing up after Barry, maybe raise your hand.
My name is Barry Drury. I'm a farmer, landlord, entrepreneur, lifelong resident, born and raised in Woodford County. Been here all my life. Lived on my grandfather's farm on Scotts Ferry Road, out McCown's Ferry. I remember the drive to town as a kid. Driving up McCown's Ferry Road, and if you get to a place that we call Moss Hill, from there into town on the right was a beautiful horse farm with white plank fences, white barns, green doors, horses, called the Herb Stevens Farm. When I drove into town tonight, it's gone. It's houses. It's all that's left. That beautiful drive to town that I knew as a child, it's gone. Forever. It won't be back. There won't be any more farmland. Some of my neighbors that have become very good friends of mine are neighbors because of in-family conveyance. And they're good people, and I love them. And it's not about the people, it's about the rules and the regulations tonight. And as we proceed through this, I understand the desire to give your kids a piece of land to build on, and I'm okay with that, so long as the kids stay there. The problem I have on the little lane that I live on is there's numerous accounts to where people have come in, they've bought 6, 8 acres, put it in the husband's name, They hold it for the 5-year required minimum. Well, they put it in the husband's name, then they deed an acre to the wife. They hold it for the 5-year required minimum, and then it's sold. And guess what? That person had nothing to do with the family. It's just sold. It's about the money and being able to split the land. Our infrastructure can't handle this. Our roads can't handle the traffic. The water lines of the South Woodford Water District can't handle the water. I know because I served on the board for several years. Their infrastructure just cannot handle it. Woodford County is a popular place because of the farms, the view, especially the horse farms, like the Herb Stevens farms that my memory is so fond of that those of you that haven't been in Woodford County very long won't know. We are eating away at these farms, aka the scenery that makes this county so special to so many people. As a farmer, I grow crops, I grow hay, I grow cattle. The last crop that's grown on the farm is a crop of houses. That's the last crop. You roll it up, lock the gate, farm is done. The views have changed, just like the Herb Stevens farm with the white plank fences. I'm in favor of the proposed change and urge you to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drury. Again, I don't know who the next name is. I apologize. You have a lovely signature. I believe it starts with an L and the last name starts with a D.
That'd be maybe, but I'm gonna pass.
All right.
Like Jay.
Thank you, Lola. I have a, looks like Stacy Tucker. Would that be right?
I thought you had signed in. That's what I didn't want to talk.
Oh, yeah, no.
Are you for it or against it? I am against it right now.
We can record that for the record. Thank you. Then I have, looks like Larry. I don't know. M? How about Mr. Hank Grady?
Can you read my name?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Grady.
Judge Executive and members of the Fiscal Court, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Hank Grady, and I'm writing to you as a Woodford County property owner and as a member of a farming family. My family farms on Clifton Road and Steel Road. We want to continue farming in Woodford County, and we've placed an agricultural conservation easement on a portion of our farmland. We're negotiating to put the easement over the balance of the farmland. From my perspective, it is long past time to repeal the so-called in-family conveyance loophole. This feature was added to our local planning ordinance when we adopted the 30-acre minimum lot size in the agricultural zoning district. I was part of that, as was Hoppy Hinton and David Humes and others. And I remember the argument that we needed the in-family conveyance in order to allow a farm owner to invite his children to come back to the farm and farm with them. I heard that argument, and the argument was sufficiently persuasive that the in-family conveyance was added to the zoning ordinance. But it hasn't happened. It rarely happens. Most of the in-family conveyances are for the purpose of creating residential development by people that are not involved in agriculture. They simply want to carve their property into smaller tracts and make it less agriculture and convert more of the county to residential. I urge you to adopt the entire proposal as recommended by the Planning Commission. I've given you more pages than my one-page letter, but I want to tell you what I've attached. There are two examples that I have some knowledge of the abuse of the in-family conveyance. One is the John Faust and Lisa Faust, Paul's Mill and Troy Pike development, and the other one is the Clifton Road development, which is somewhat painful to me. James and Dawn Hall, parents to Marilyn, mother, Stephen, son, Kayla, daughter, and Zach, son. If you look at the plats that are attached, and I'm not going to spend more than about 3 minutes, but if you look at the Faust plat, this was a 30-acre tract on Paul's Mill Road, meaning it was a legal conforming tract in the A1 zone. And that's what it was. It was farmland. It has an historic building on it, but it had no homes. Nobody lived on it. And the division of this property was approved to allow the 19 acres to be conveyed off. So the parent tract is the 6-acre tract, which has no restrictions on it. It doesn't have a 5-year wait period. It's able to be sold.
Your 3 minutes, would you like to request an additional minute or two?
1 minute, may I have 1 minute? So in this case, the parent tract is the smaller tract, and it has no limitation of a 5-year waiting period. It can be sold immediately to build a house, and we have now 2 non-conforming tracts, whereas before we had 1 conforming tract. Below that, several pages later, is the plat of the Hall property, creating 5 lots to go with the parent tract. This is a subdivision without complying with subdivision requirements. This is a great miscarriage of our zoning ordinance. These 2 examples are reasons that I would urge you to fix this problem by adopting this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Grady. I'd just like for folks to know that I said each speaker is recommended to speak for 3 minutes and may speak longer if necessary. I'm going to tell you the time and just be respectful of everyone else's time. So it's not a hard limit. We're not trying to cut people off. If you have additional things that you'd like to say and you've already spoken, there may be opportunity at the end. Thank you, Mr. Grady. I'll move on to Mr. Brown. Tom Brown.
Thank you. I don't have any prepared writings to turn in, but I want to suggest that you vote for these changes. I've been in the county for over 40 years, and my biggest concern is with the in-family conveyance. Alan George probably remembers the details of a situation that took over 12 years in the courts to resolve, because the adjoining landowners simply weren't allowed to comment, and we knew that there were flaws, and the flaws were based on the parent tract being non-conforming, so it had no road frontage, and so it relied on easements, and they bought an adjacent non-conforming tract and then tried to apply those easements for the in-family conveyances. And it was, again, a situation that was taken to the courts. It was taken to the fiscal court also. It ended up costing the neighborhood relationships. It's resulted in disinformation that is still pervasive in the neighborhood. And this was simply, really had nothing to do with farming. It was just a way to break up property. And so, again, I would just suggest, please do these text amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Laura Mitchell. Yes, ma'am. I believe I have Julie Reed.
My name is Julie Reed. I was born at Woodford Memorial Hospital, so I have lived here literally my entire life. My family is generational here. My grandfather, Roy, fought and bled and begged and borrowed to buy as much land as he possibly could because he knew how important land was, because he wanted to be able to create a legacy for his family. He was able to give each of his 4 children a farm. Before he even deeded them their farms, he was able to give them land to build homes on. It was my grandmother's house, my grandmother and grandmother's house, my Aunt Ann Rout's house, my dad and mom's house. Across the road was my Uncle Herb and my Aunt Shirley, and then around the corner on Hiffner was my Aunt Doris and her husband. My dad died living in his home. My aunt had to sell her home because she couldn't afford, she was older, she was in her 80s, she needed to move to town to be closer to her children. My other aunt died in her home. Her husband still lives there. My Uncle Herb did not sell his home until he was much older in life. Because of the in-family conveyance and because of the importance of family, my family was able to be down there in Mortonsville all together. It is important that we do not pass this ordinance. We need families to be able to stay near their families. I am so blessed. My parents also, here's a good example of how the in-family conveyance works when people follow the rules. I'm sorry that people don't follow the rules. My dad and mom deeded me 5 acres. My husband and I built a home. We've lived there for almost 20 years now. My daughter's 17. I have 35 acres left of this land that my grandfather worked so hard for and bled over. I would love to be able to give my daughter some of that acreage if I am blessed enough that she wants to come back home after college and build a home and raise her kids so that we can all live on the same property. That is a blessing. And not only is it a blessing, but it's a right as a landowner to be able to do. And I think that there needs to be accommodations for that in these ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Mr. Reed?
Yes, sir. Howdy, I'm Griff, Julie's husband, and I kind of want to follow up on what she's talking about right here. I can look around at most of you in the room right here and say that if you had a piece of property and you wanted your kids to live with you, you'd want them to be there. I heard a guy talking on Sunday at church, and he said, when my kitchen table on Sunday is full, that's when I'm happiest. Not when there's 3 of them, I'm still happy. Not when there's 2 of them, I'm still happy. Not when there's 1. But when all of them are there, all 4 of my children are there, that's when my life is full and I'm the happiest. And I think we should all have the opportunity to bring our families in and keep that community together like the Lancaster family did. And I am totally opposed to this change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Autumn Tucker?
Autumn Tucker, Elliston Lane. I have prepared a statement that you should have already received, and I still fully back that statement.
Yes, ma'am.
And Julie and Griff were fabulous in what they had to say. I completely agree with them. I grew up on Elliston Lane, same situation. Grandparents lived out there, aunt and uncle, my parents. I still live back on the land, the property behind my father. And I have a 1997 fax from planning and zoning that showed me that I would be able to in-family convey when I bought that piece behind them. So this is a little upsetting that I may not be able to let my daughter or son do so. I understand that subdivisions could pose some problems, and 1 to 2 acres isn't a lot. 5 or more would probably be helpful, and that's where I stand on all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tucker. And are you good for us to share your comments with the public as well, your written comments?
I remember them, and they were in a flurry of voice text.
We'll hold those for you.
Okay? Okay, yes, you can.
I'll submit them back to you for review, and you can give me approval.
She read it. If it's passable, it's passable.
All right, thank
The
you.
baby wouldn't hear a word in that, right?
Amber, I believe that's an F, last name. If I got that wrong, I'm sorry. We have a Michael, last name, I believe that's D, maybe? Yeah, that's a D.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Just like old homecoming here today, Michael Duckworth, thank you for the time to do this today and to take, this is a very, it's a very emotional decision to a lot of families that have to deal with this issue. I want to just kind of share our quick story that Debbie and I have been through, just to kind of use our farm as an example to what, may be something you're going to be making a decision on soon. 12 years ago, we bought a farm on Shannon Run Road, bought another 11-acre tract, and then bought another half-acre tract. We consolidated all the tracts just the way the rules told us we were supposed to consolidate those. Now we got 44 acres. We built one new house. We bought the existing property that had the old Stilts home place on it. And if those walls could talk, I guess maybe we could really have some stories. But the point is that farm was 220 acres in 1991. That's when we moved to town, and I started following this issue, and I followed it pretty much my whole life here. The farm now has 5 houses and 5 farm owners. It's pretty much the A1 zone. It hasn't changed except for 5 mini farms have been subdivided. We've always been told, as we've tried to counsel with planning and zoning, that we would have options for in-family conveyance on that property. We've chose not to. We've got a daughter and son-in-law that live here, got one in Nashville. I don't know what their plans are, but Debbie and I have invested a lot of money on that property. Some of y'all remember when we bought it. It was a pretty run-down old place. So we've been able to build that farm up, and then I guess another part of our story is we've gone through the Ag Review Committee, we've gone through the Board of Adjustments Committee, and we've been through the processes that are on the books here. And they're very interesting to go through. Everybody ought to have to go through that one time in their life, but just one time. It gave me a chance to meet a lot of people, to learn a lot. I've studied this. I was a little late to the game, like David Humes just said, and I had several things. I try to put all these on a quick note here, but we were so limited on what we could do on our farm. You think you invest that kind of money, you wouldn't be limited. But I've got like 13 things here I was limited by when I put this venue on our property. I had no intention to have a wedding venue. We just by accident got into that business. And by accident, we got in the Christmas tree business because of a requirement in that rule. And I've read these rules, and all those things are scratched out that I had to spend all my time and my money and my efforts to get my farm set up in. So one of the biggest issues was lights and neighbors, and I get along great with all my neighbors. And I have a farm next door that's a large horse operation. Horses in and out there all the time, lights in and out all the time. Lights hit my house, but when I was asked about my venue, it was a big deal about the lights hitting my neighbor's house. I can only do things on weekends. I get lights in my house every night. I don't complain because I live in the A1 zone. It's no big deal to me. The A1 is has served Debbie and I well. I understand this is a whole county deal we're trying to pull together here. But I guess my concern is the horse might already be out of the barn if I'm studying, and Kenneth Johns kind of coached me up on this one map here from October 2024. There's 4,442 parcels, 3,851 of them, that's 87%, are 50 acres or less, 80%, 3,500, or 30 acres or less. So that farms have already been subdivided through various rules that we've had on the books. And I'm not going to really get into the city, but the city also has a bunch of buildable lots. And my question I kept asking Kenneth is how many houses are already built on those lots? I don't have an answer yet. Maybe you all already know this, but I couldn't get an answer. So I guess some of the things as we're kind of trying to, as a community, go forth with this, is we need to really think hard about this 1991, is that 3 minutes? 5, okay, sorry. Just to,
If you have additional and you want to request time, please proceed.
I just have a couple more comments. I was trying to do some quick study on the growth rate of the county. So I looked at 1991 to 2023. We've had 7,313 people move to this county. We've always been 1% or less over the last 10 or 12 years. I guess my last comment is this: is proceed cautiously with what you do, because we see some of the rules that have changed and some of the impact it's had indirectly. We have unintended consequences several times. And I guess my last point is to not panic, but take time and gather the facts. And that's what I've been doing the last 2 months. I'm a little slow to the game, but I just thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Duckworth. Mr. Scott Lancaster?
Yes, sir. So I hear people talking today. Some people say they've been here 30, 40 years. Some people say they don't like to ride anymore. Those people already have their stuff. They don't have to worry about it. I'd like to be able to leave my family the property I have. My family has been here documented in a deed I have since before the Civil War. I hear people, like I say, talk about they've been here 30, 40 years. I've been here. I was born in Woodford County Hospital. I don't want to get run off. I don't want the rest of my family to have to leave. I don't care about any regulations or anything, but I'd like the in-family conveyance to be used and used correctly. If there's a way you can do that, that's what I want. I don't think it should be eliminated completely, and I think many people in here benefited from it and then don't want it now. They don't worry about anybody else, they're just worried about themselves. I'm worried about people I'm going to leave it to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. Yes. Rebecca S. Kelly? Yes, you may.
I didn't prepare anything today, but I'll let you know that I'm in direct correlation with the Faust property that was just passed in family conveyance, a reversal. I'm seeing everything come down from that you guys passed. I bought my almost 30 acres, so excited to be out there around the piece of paradise, knowing that there was other 30 acres like me that knew how precious land is from the standpoint of natural conservation. So right at the moment as I was driving to town, the 5.5 acres that was in family conveyance now has David Hume's realtor sign on it for almost $300,000 for 5 acres that is all flooded except for 0.9 acres that is buildable. Well, that even goes against the acre that's supposed to be buildable on any tract. And then I have another neighbor that did, again, the reverse in family conveyance, so they can live on the 5 acres within that 30 acres, so they don't have to go to a nursing home, and allow their son to keep the farm as what the family conveyance is meant to be. So I'm right there in the crosshairs of the wrong way family conveyance is and the right way of family conveyance. That was the whole purpose of that. That's why I bought out there, and it's sad to see people don't understand that from a town standpoint and a country standpoint, but we're all people. there should be no segregation of that, and please do the right thing. I would appreciate that. And another thing too, somebody said about people that are coming in, that they're not going to build $1 million homes on flood ground. And in the meantime, yes, this past July, when there were people out on the Fowles property, my horse went through a fence that a bull couldn't even go through because of illegal fireworks and illegal four-wheelers. And an illegal four-wheeler went down that Paul's Mill and put a great big hole in Susan, my neighbor's fence, that cost her $5,000 to fix, and they weren't charged. So there's things behind the scenes that just makes common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Kim Blackie?
Hello, everybody. My name is Kim Blackie. My husband and I have 2 farms here in Woodford County. One's a small farm that actually used to be part of a big old farm, and it's only 22 acres, but we have about 175 acres over off of Craig's Creek that we still farm and have cattle. I was raised on a farm, not here. I wasn't born here, but I was born in another little small town. My dad was Bob Mack. He had 5 daughters, and he had the feed store, and so I grew up as a farm girl, and we were able to raise our 4 daughters that way too. And some of them have actually come back, which is pretty awesome. I guess I would sort of like to tag on to what Michael Duckworth was saying about take your time. I know there's been a lot of time spent, but there are a few things that I find still concerning about where we are. And I just don't know if we shouldn't just pause, and I know pause sounds like an awful word right now, but let's really understand a few of the things that we're doing with this. I don't hear a full-throated, in the comp plan that I've read, or even in these ordinances, a full-throated endorsement of saving farmland. I hear us picking around and trying to do it and do development and save farmland as best we can. But I'm really afraid that the farmland that's farmable, that you can grow crops on and that you can raise cattle on, is quickly diminishing. And I think is there another way we can do a more full-throated endorsement of saving that farmland? What do we want to develop? Let's develop what you all think and we all think is the best places in the county to develop. Let's develop green spaces. These are where we're going to build houses. And I think this cluster idea gets at that. But I think we could be a little more even thorough at that, so that rather than the developer deciding say it's us, say it's Mr. Smith that is down the road from me. Well, let me just say it happened in our backyard this summer when somebody was using the 80-20 rule and wanted to put 15 houses back behind right where we are. I thought, is this guy a developer? Does he understand what's best for Woodford County? He may, I don't know. Or there's another farm, 204-acre farm just down the road from us. If that 80-20, I don't like the 80-20, I guess I'll just go ahead and say that. I think it divides up, makes it more of a quilt than we already are. I already have those concerns that, yeah, we may have lost all that, the horse may be out of the barn, but here we are. So that 204-acre farm Mr. Smith has, if he decides to sell or do an 80-20 split, and we switch from the 1 acre, from him being able on that 20 acres to have 20 houses on that farm, that you can see the entire farm from McCown's Ferry, and it now is 10 acres. Well, he has a 200-acre farm, so that means he actually can build 20 houses on his 200 acres. That's a lot of houses. That's a big decision. That's a lot of water. It's a lot of septic. It's a lot of busing of children to schools. It's a lot of interruption, you know, a lot of traffic for I ran into a tractor today. You run into a tractor on a pretty regular basis on McCowan's Ferry. So I really think that's one of the things I think we should look at is that 80-20. The other one that I have some concerns about is the circles. Oops, I'm making a mess here, that's all right. Are the small districts. The size of these small districts, if you look at the circles, I think it's interesting that it's a circle. What does a circle have to do with farmland? I mean, I don't get it. Anyway, it's an arbitrary architectural way to just make a quick decision. And an effective, like, okay, this goes for everybody, and it's a simple way to do it. But this circle in Millville is bigger than Midway, much bigger than Midway. Why is it much bigger than Midway?
And Ms. Blackie, we're at 5 minutes.
Okay, and I will just say that, why is it a circle? As long as you're a mile out from Mortonsville, you can develop that any way you want. Well, it may be that it shouldn't be a circle, but it actually, these cluster communities should be relative to the roads that they cross. And that it might fluctuate. Like if you look at the design of Versailles's urban service boundary, it goes like this. And it plays into what's important around the city. And why wouldn't you do the same thing for these small communities you're developing? So those are the two things that I would really like us to pause and think about. And the third thing I would end with is, let us decide where the development is, and let's save the farms. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blackie. Thank you. Sure. Do you have other folks that were signed up that I missed your name?
There's a short list out on the sheet.
Would you mind to bring that to me? We'll have our sheriff bring it to us. Gotcha. John? Yes, sir.
My name is John Bahandas. I have a 270-acre farm at the end of Watts Ferry on the Kentucky River. I've only been in the county for 3 years, so apply the proverbial grain of salt, but our intention from the beginning has been to preserve this farm. I would consider it probably one of the heritage farms in the county. We are farming. We have 100 animals. We do hay, we do grasses, we do have some short-term rentals there, and we also do things like Wounded Warrior Hunt and things that Joe Lacefield has done for decades out there. I'm in support of the language. I did watch the videos of the previous hearings, and I really appreciated the ARC comments and their insights, and I think this is a thoughtful and positive move forward, and so I'll be brief and say I support. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bahandas. Thank you. You're next, ma'am. If you don't mind to state your name for the record.
I'm Kimberly Ellerstapp. I wasn't really prepared to talk tonight. I just found out about it last night. But I guess what I want to say, some of you all might not know me, but you might know like my grandfather, my dad, Clyde Eller, James Eller. They both are native Woodford County, specifically from the Fentville area. My grandfather worked his entire life to secure his property and his house and raise his 4 kids out there. I remember growing up that my dad worked 3 jobs in order to get a piece of, his property, build a house, and raise his kids on it. And now as an adult, I want to do the same thing for my kids. I urge you to please not do this, to make a change at least to protect our families and native Woodford Countyans and young families. Somewhere meet in the middle or something, because I do love our farmland and I want it to be protected too. There's a reason I live here and not in Lexington. But I just think that the day that this gets approved and families can't stay here is a sad day. That's it.
Thank you. I'd like to open up the floor for other comments, other public comments. Mr. Arrington, yes, sir.
Hi, thank you guys for putting this together and allowing us to speak. I am Ken Arrington, and excuse me, I live in the Fentville area, and unfortunately we had some flooding down there recently, but neighbors take care of neighbors, just like farmers take care of farmers. And I grew up not in this county, but I've been here 30 years, so I feel like I'm kind of a native. But I grew up on a farm that my dad was a tenant farmer. So most of you know what tenant farmers are, and I had a ambition of owning my own farm someday. So with the relationship of Pat and J.M. Blaine, we were able to purchase some land on the Fentville area, which is, as most of you know, down by the river. There's not much opportunity to farm, and that whole area is wooded. So due to that, I fell in October and putting up a tree stand on the farm, and I had to have rotator cuff surgery just last Thursday. So I wasn't very prepared for this either, but I will say that with what we've tried to do is provide that legacy for our family, just like the people who've spoken before. And our children 3 years ago decided that they wanted to live on the farm. So we did the in-family conveyance, and we deeded off, land to our kids. They built a house there, and now I have twin granddaughters that are 150 yards from my place, and it is awesome to have our kids there, our grandkids there. And our daughter now has been working for me for about 4 months, and moved back into the farm with us at our house, and now she's wanting to build a house on the farm, and we can have that legacy that we want, which we have 2 children, and both of them will be on the farm. If we don't have some option to have